All right, so let's kick off. Thank you very much, Juan, for the invitation for this session. And here we are, the two of us. My name is Pedro. Hello, Susana. Everything good with you?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Susana. I'm doing this presentation together with Pedro. I hope you enjoy.
All right. So first of all, before we kick off, thanks to our sponsors and to the organization for making this event possible. I hope that you are enjoying the event and the rest of the sessions in the day. Second of all, so our session today will be presented by the two of us. I am team leader at Natixis. It's a French investment bank, part of PPCE, one of the largest banks in Europe. I'm also one of the founders of the Power BI Portugal group, and I try to participate in a lot of conferences as speaker and also attendee to see what's going on. I think it's a great place to pack a lot of content and for us to get to know ideas that other guys in the world have. What about you, Susanna? What can we know about you?
Well, I am data enthusiastic. I love algorithms, everything about data and extracting knowledge and helping improving the process inside the business. My academic background is on I have a master in bioengineering, and I work for the past 3 years in the team of Pedro as a business intelligence developer, also here at Natixis. So also a very data enthusiastic. I like very much to participate in these events and learning with you all. So today I hope you will learn something with us too.
All right. And so we are representatives of Natixis in this event. We have people that we have actually already some some people that came from South America to work in our company, and also from Venezuela. Also, for instance, I think we still don't have anyone from Colombia. But if you like investment banking and IT, check it out. I post the link here, and we are hiring a lot of people until the end of the year. So feel free to check it out for opportunities. So let's talk a bit about our session today. The objectives of the session is first to share with you guys what is DAX and some of the benefits it can bring for you. Just give you resources that you can see and explore a little bit about DAX. Show you a demo. Susanne will show a demo on the web that you can do at the same time, or you can practice later. We'll share some links in the end that you guys can use it too. And so we'll share in the end of the session also a script that you can just open and try it out. And our contacts, and if there is any question in the end, we'll also make sure to save a few minutes just for that. So let's get started. First of all, what is DAX and what does these 3 letters mean? Well, DAX means Data Analysis Expressions. As simple as that. Actually, it's not the D and the A are the first letters, but from the expressions, it's the X. That's why it's a bit tricky sometimes. The name and the meaning is this. And it's really the language behind Power BI. It's the language behind Microsoft Analysis Services Tabular, behind Power Pivot. So every calculation that you are going to do with these tools for the formula engine, it's going to be with DAX if you're working with tabular and not with multidimensional. If you want some inspiration and see really what can be done with DAX, well, my recommendation is go to the Power BI community data stories gallery. There are many reports that are posted there that you can get inspiration from. You can filter by the type of area, if it's HR, finance, sports, etc. And there are a lot of, you guys can do the same thing. If you can create a report, you publish it there and it's available for everyone. So if you want to see cool reports, maybe with some cool formulas, check it out, the Data Stories gallery. So we come to a point, what can DAX do for you guys? I believe that there are 2 profiles that it's especially interesting for. The first one is the business user and the analyst, who now doesn't depend so much on the IT side to create some calculations in the model. You don't need everything on the database. You can create the logic. You can control more the business logic. And at the same time, so this user, this analyst, which is part of the 3rd wave of BI. First, BI BI was just IT. Then BI was extended more to some of end users and especially analysts. And then we are on the third wave of BI right now, which is self-service BI, self-reporting, citizen developer. And so this is kind of the business user analyst. It's a bit of the second and the third. So the citizen developer or the analyst. Also, it's useful for the IT and BI because knowing what someone else is going to do with the models they create afterwards, it's useful to know that you don't need to do anything on your data lake or your data warehouse engine. I've seen cases that people create 100 columns on SQL Server or something like that with calculations that you can so easily do it in DAX, price with taxes, price without taxes, price with discount, price with vouchers, no vouchers, no discounts, all that kind of things. You can imagine the number of columns that you can create in your in a factual of orders or sales order items, something like that. You don't need to do it anymore if you know people are going to connect with Power BI. It's better to do it in DAX. So IT BI guy says, I can now leave the business logic to the reporting side. They can easily manipulate the entities in a different context. It will save tons of space and will have better and performing models. So who is this session for? This session is more for the beginner and intermediate levels. Why? Because we believe that if you are already in the advanced level, you already know where to go for, where to consume resources, and you probably did a lot of things to get to that level. So I believe that you can learn for yourself. But when you are in the beginner and intermediate level, which is most people really, then I think this session can be interesting for you. Throwing in some learning resources. Where can you go if you want to learn about DAX and in general about Power BI? You can go, for instance, to sqlbi.com. This is really the reference site that you can and should go to learn about DAX. They post many articles, they have many resources. So the two Italians, if you know them, so it's quite the place to go. DAX Guide is also a site from sqlbi.com, which has all the formulas. And it has an explanation of what does each formula do, which kind of type of formula it is, in which versions of the product of Power BI does it work, only in Power BI desktop, in analysis services 2017, 2019, these kind of things, you get that information there. DAXpatterns.com is a place where you can see chunks of DAX code implemented in a dummy PBIX. So you can check it out. For instance, categorization of customers in ABC or products, ABC products. These kind of things on DAX patterns, you see their code that you can apply in your models to do that. You have other thing, which is a quick measures gallery, also in the Power BI communities, which you have actual PBIX files that you can download with kind of examples that you can use for that. About books, you have the Definitive Guide to DAX, second edition. So this is basically the Bible of DAX. It's a big book with a lot of things that you can recur to. And you have maybe a new book from Reza Had, which I haven't yet seen in detail, but it looks very interesting, which is Power BI DAX Simplified. It's a very recent release, about a month ago or something like that. So some of the resources that can be useful for you guys. If you want to practice DAX, usually you have two options. You have Power BI Desktop and you have DAX Studio. So if you so let's first take a look maybe at these two. So let's take a look at these two. And the first thing is, okay, you want to explore some formulas and practice in DAX. The general thing, you can go to Power BI and I can create a measure, which might be just a count. Let's make a count rows of the customers table. Okay. So, and I get my number. So this is the basic formula of DAX account rows or a sum on anything like that, that is counting or summing something in a column. This is a way to practice DAX directly in Power BI desktop. Other way is using a program which is called DAX Studio. I'm opening it up right now. When I open it, it asks if I want to connect to an existing server that I have. I can, or to any Power BI file that I have open right now. So I can click in my current file. It will connect, because behind the scenes what actually happens is I have a local instance of analysis services running behind the background of Power BI Desktop. And now I can do the same thing. I will evaluate, let's see, my customers table. I can run it, and I have my results. And just to prove that I get the same result, I can do a count rows of this table. This won't work because I need the curly brackets, as Suzanne will later explain. If I'm returning a scalar value, and then I need to tell that I want to retrieve a scalar value. So I get here my number of 663. So this is the two traditional methods of learning about DAX. Well, nice demo. Where can I get the file? So the normal case would be we do a demo, and then in the end there would be a lot of files that maybe you at any point you wouldn't get, or we'd have to share with you, put it in a repository or something like that. Well, there is a nice way to do it now, which is SQL BI recently launched a website which is DAX Do. And in this site, you can practice DAX on the web, which is fantastic because you can reproduce exactly everything that we do at the same time, save it, share it with other people, and it's quite powerful and interesting. So with that being said, I'll pass the word to Susana to show us a bit about it.
Okay, thank you, Pedro. I will just share my screen for you to see. Okay, it's ready. Okay, so let's start with the demo and trying to see the things happening. As Pedro said, in this demo, we will use the DAX tool. This is a tool that is available on the cloud, and you can very easily use this for learning purpose. It has two available databases that you can use, and then start to do your own queries, from the simple ones to start to understand how DAX works, seeing the results that are retrieving, and then maybe trying to put more complexity on the query. So it's a very useful tool for the ones that are starting this path on DAX. In here, as I said, we have two available databases. If we click on here, we can see the data model that is behind these databases. For instance, for this Contoso database, which is the one that I will be using in the demonstration, we can see that we have a very simple data model with a factual table in the center, then the dimensions, and we can see that we have here already the relations defined between the tables. One of the main differences between writing queries in SQL or in DAX is really the fact that in SQL, if you want to query fields from different tables, in each query you have to identify the relationship between these tables. For the DAX, as it starts with a tabular model, these relationships are already defined in the model, are part of the model that we build. So we build them once at the beginning, we define the relationships that we want, and then we don't need to worry about the relationships between the tables. I will, in the demo, I will have an example for you to see this difference, just to have in mind. For DAX, we have a tabular model with the tables and the relationships already defined. And with that, we write our queries. So let's start. I have already prepared a blank simple file with some bullet points that I want to show you. And at the end of the session, you will have the links for this file for you to try. So let's start with the simplest thing that we do in SQL, which is a select star from products. In this case, how can we do that in DAX? So to use it in DAX, we just need to write here this key word, which will always be present in all my queries, and then we have to define which is the table that we want to show. And like that, if I run this selection, I will have here the result of the query that I just wrote. Well, I can see that this result is truncated, but I have here all the columns and the rows, the records. So this is the equivalent of a select star in SQL. So let's start doing other things, like if I want not just the whole table, but I want to select a column from the table. I want all the column values that exist on that column. So how can I do that? I will start with evaluate. As I said, it will be always present. And then I just need to use this function, values, that giving it the name of the column that I want, in this case, product brand, I will have all the distinct values of my column. Okay. One thing that is very useful while writing code here in DAX do is that while I'm writing the code, as you can see, while I'm writing, I have here the syntax of the function that I'm using. And not only that, but if I click on the function at the right, I have here some information about the function, what it does, which is the syntax, how are the returning values of this function, and also some useful articles that you can read and with some examples on how to use this function. So very useful content for you to learn about the functions that you are using. So on here, to have the distinct values, I can use this function, or there is another function that I could use, which is a distinct, that I need to give him the same column and it will return me the exact same result as the values. So all the distinct values of the column brand. Okay? So, but now you can ask, oh, I don't want to have simply all the distinct values of that column, but I want all the column values without distinct. I want all the records for this column. I can also have that if I write instead of a values or a distinct, I use the select columns function. In that case, as the documentation information says, I need to give it name of the table, in this case product, and then I need to give a name to the result that will be outputted. And it can be any name. It works as a alias, where in SQL we use the has and the name that we want to output. And again, I just need to say that I want the product brand column to be outputted. And if I run this selection, I have all the records without a distinct, all the really values that I have for product brands. So let's keep going. And now I want to do the counting of the number of rows in a table, similar to what Pedro did just before. And I will use exactly the same function as he used, which is a count rows. And now I give it the name of the table. Okay. I will try to run it. And well, this in this way it will not work. As Pedro said, we need to use here the curly brackets to encapsulate result. Why is that? DAX has two different types of returning values. It can return tables or scalars. In this particular function returns a scalar, which is just a counting of the number of rows. And my evaluate is expecting to return something in the format of a table. As you can see here, the query is not a valid table expression. So I have to encapsulate the result, this scalar, in a way that it is understood as a table, even if it is just a one row, one column table. And like that, it will work. Then we can keep going, and instead of just having the result of the counting rows of product, I can have it, I can want not just the counting rows for this table, but two other tables like product and customer, and I want this result in a single output. You can say, well, you can use exactly the same statement that you have done before, and instead of customer or product, you put customer. Yes, I have the good result. However, I want it as a single row result. So I can try to use this row function that need me to express which is the name of the first column, and I will say that it is product rows. Then the expression, I will use here exactly the same expression as before. And then I will say I want a second column with the customer rows. And I will use the expression that I just computed before. Like that. Let's try. Yeah, I have the result of two different expressions displayed in the same output with different column names. Okay, so far so good. But let's try to understand now this concept that I started here with encapsulation. Sometimes is good to have simple examples to understand how it behaves, and this is something very simple but can be very useful in the future. So if I want to just retrieve here a sequence of numbers and with curly brackets, this will return me everything in different rows. However, if I want everything in the same row, I just need to put it inside these parentheses. And like that, sorry, and like that, instead of having 4 rows, I will have a single row with 4 columns. And then you can already imagine that we can play a bit with this and separate it and create like a matrix of values. Like that, we will have a table with 2 rows and 2 columns. This is just a trick that it seems very simple, but sometimes it's this simple knowledge can help us in the future for other more complex situations. So I just wanted to show you this. We keep on, and we will do some other operations in our queries. Let's try to put a where clause in DAX. Well, in SQL, we use this. We can do a select star from product and with the where clause filtering our results. What is the equivalent in DAX? Well, to do it in DAX, we just need to use. I will write evaluate again, and then we just need to use a filter function. This filter just needs as output the table that we want to filter and the filter expression, very similar to what we have in here. So I will put product. Sorry, I will put like that because product is a keyword. Product, and then my filter expression. Let's try to filter with this brand, Tailspin Toys. So with that, I want to say that I want to filter this column with our Tailspin Toys brand. And this will give me the result of the table, filtering just on this brand. And with this, we can start adding more complexity on the expression, like doing an AND condition. And let's say that we want to filter the Tailspin Toys and the ones that color is silver. So let's try to see if it works. Okay, the syntax is not the correct one. Just one of the differences in the syntax to do a AND or operations are, instead of the keyword and, we use these two symbols. And the equivalent thing for the or is to use the two vertical bars. So if I want to put not only this silver color, but also the red, I will need to put these two characters. So running this, I will have the result with the red, with the product equals to Tailspin Toys, and the color, sorry, here it must be color, silver and red, or red. Okay, this is how we create this filter condition. Let's try to do now a top N operation, something that we do also a lot in our SQL queries. How can we do that in DAX? Well, to do the same thing in DAX, there is a function which is called top N, and this top N function can retrieve us the top N for the desired table. So let's simply do a top 20 of the column, the table product. Like that, I can see that I have 20 rows with the top 20. In SQL, if I want to do a top 20, let's say, order by the unit price, the top 20 rows with a higher unit price, I just need to apply the order by condition. But if I do this DAX order by, and I will use the unit price column, I will see that it isn't exactly the desired behavior. It is just in order me the result of the last top N, but the top N seems to be a bit random like that. That's because we need to specify the order by expression of our top N inside the function. I mean, for us to have the top 20 products with a higher price, I need to specify here that I want to use the unit price as a descending. And like that, just running this single statement, I can see that I have here 20 products, and this is more logical, the higher unit prices that we have. And now we can apply the order after, but we'll just order the result of the top N in the descending mode. Okay, like that, this is the desired result, the top 20 products sorted by unit price. Well, let's keep going on our operations, and now we can try to do some aggregations, all the combinations of product brand and product category. In SQL, there is something that would be the select, the product brand, product category from the table, and grouped by the same columns. How can we do this in DAX? Well, very simply, we can evaluate, as we always do, and use a summarize function that needs me to output to identify the table and then the group by column name, as we can see here. And I will put product brand and product category. Okay, and I have all the different combinations of these two fields. Something that I can now took your attention to is that, as we can see, I'm just writing the code in a single row most of the times. But sometimes the expressions can become a bit complex, and DAX is an encapsulated language. If we need to put functions inside functions to work with them together, so it can be a bit confused. A best practice is, as in other language, always format your code. So when you start to write your queries, try to format and try to put it in a way that you can most easily increase the complexity of the formula without decreasing the readable of it. So like that, it is easier to understand what is doing. It is taking the product table and summarized by brand and category. So if I keep going, I can want to have the category, but also had a measure, a calculated value that tells me the number of product rows, for instance, which also we can do it in SQL as that. How can I do this in DAX? Well, very simply, I can also use the same summarize or the summarize columns these are very similar functions. And then I can say that I want the product category, and I can add a new field, a calculated value, indicating which is the expression that I want. And I want the count rows of product. Okay? And in this way, I aggregate the result and I calculate this metric. And I have for each category the number of rows in our table. So very simple to do also. Keep going. And now I will change a bit the context. Instead of working with the product table that we are using until now, I will start using customer. So let's keep a first look on this table to see how it looks like. So we have this customer table. Again, we have a truncated result, but we have information about the customer, about the children, some geographical information too. So let's start work with that. As we can see, we have the information about the total number of children of our customer. Let's try to see which is the maximum number of children. So to do that, again, I do evaluate. And well, if I want the maximum, maybe there is a max function, which there is, that can compute me the customer total children. And as we already said, as this will return a scalar, I need to encapsulate the results inside these curly brackets. And then I run this selection and I have the maximum value of children. It's 5. Okay. So let's try to see now, aggregate our total number of children to know how many users have each number. So let's see how many users have 1 child, 2 children, 3, 4, 5, etc. How can we do? We can use the same function that we used before, the summarize columns. Then I will summarize the customer total children, and I will create a calculated measure called rows and count rows for the table customer. Okay, so like that, I have the number of customers which have each number of childs. So this is not very readable. Maybe we can put here an order by, and let's order by customer total children, and we will have a more readable result. Yeah, like that. So it's very simple. It's always the same thing. You call one function that summarizes you the result, and then if you want to change the way the result is displayed with order by, you put it after the first statement. Okay. So, but we can have a use case where instead of knowing how many children our customers have, we just want to know if they have children or not. Just a binary result. Yes, it has children. No, it doesn't. So we can create maybe a kind of flag in our table to identify these cases. How can we do that? We can create a new column with this add columns function, and it will be created in our customer table. And I will create a flag, like a flag column called has children, that will have an expression saying that if it has or not. How would be an expression? It would be a if our customer total children is bigger than 0, well, it's because it has, otherwise it hasn't. And we will see like that we have our initial table, the same table as before, but with another column created by us with indication, the flag indication if it has children or not. Well, but imagine that you want to use, you create this column and you want to use not only this formula, but in multiple formulas. You don't need to create and to write this expression every time you need to use it. One way to do it is to define like a variable. You define a column, a new column in your table, and then you can reuse it multiple times. To do that, you need to use the define statement. This define statement, it's already here. I will just uncomment. Just need you to specify that you want to create a new column. You identify which is the column that you will create. In here, you write the name of this new column. It will be called as children 2, as I don't have any column named like that. And then the expression that creates me the column. And then I can use it in other queries. I can use it, for instance, I can summarize again, similar to what I've done before. And I will summarize the customer table with the total children. Okay, and now I will summarize with this new column that I just created as children 2. And then I will count the number of rows to see how many of them as 1 or 0. Okay, so like that. If I run it, and I have to run it with my define statement together, I will have, oh, sorry, I miss here something. Yes, I don't need to write it like that. This was for the last example, but like that, yeah, I will have the number of customers that don't have children and the number of customers that have children. Just a flag. Okay, so if I want to keep reusing this column, I just need to call it with the name that I already defined in the beginning and make sure that the define statement runs together with my other statement. Okay, and now I will give it the example that I talked about in the beginning regarding the way we write our queries when we want to call fields that belongs to different tables. If we want to do that in SQL, we would write a select statement like that. We define the state from the customer, the brand, an amount, and then as we are using different tables, we would need to define how they are joined. As in DAX, the relationships are already defined in our model, we don't need to do that. So the only thing that we need to do is to just call for these fields. So let's say that I want to know the amount of sales at the beginning just for customer state, just to start with a simple example. Start column, customer, I will use state. sales, and I use sales amount. And I know that this already exists. I will show you. This exists in our factual table. Sales, there is already here a sales amount defined. So I will use it in my query. So I have for each state the sales amount. But what if I want to have it, to have in here the detail of state, but also of product brand, using now fields from different columns? How can I do that? Well, let's just format a bit to be easier to see, but I just need to add here the other column, product brand. And like that, our sales is incorrect, missing a comma. Okay, and like that, I have my result with the detail of state and brand, fields coming from different tables, and the amount sales, without needing to specify any relationship. As you can see, is a bit simpler than it is in the SQL statement. So now let's maybe just to have a better visual insight of it, let's sort it by state, maybe. Yes, and now you can see for each state the detail of product brands and the sales. And it's pretty much something like that. Then we can always try to put more complexity on this, try to filter the tables that are in our input, apply other conditions. But the basis of the syntax is like that, like I show you. So then, this is my last example. I hope you find it interesting. So now I pass to the questions. I don't know if there is any question, but feel free to contact.
Thanks, Susanna. So I'll share the screen again, just to put our contacts and maybe one or two end notes. So let me put it back up. All right. So just as a wrap up, two key points that you can also take. So Susanna, thanks for showing us how DAX is easy to do. Just a few lines, and we can really get stuff from the data and practice online, which is much better than each of us doing their own version.
Yes, for sure.
Comments from a lot of experience in the area. Sometimes it's not you, it's your data model, meaning that this is the case that I see all the time. Someone coming to ask if they know that me or Susanna know about DAX or anyone else, and they have a question. And usually the problem is not the formula, because people are trying to get a formula to work, and they are trying something with some X's and with all and filters and stuff and trying to make it work, but it doesn't work well. And the reason is because the model is not very good. So you need to understand DAX to make the model well, and you need to know how to make a model so that your DAX is simple. So it's a vicious cycle that one improves the other. So sometimes it's not your data model. DAX is relatively simple if your model is good. This is a key takeaway. Secondly, if it's not formatted, it's not DAX. So keep the code clean and readable, not only for yourself, but for others who can pick it up later on in the end. If you like this session, check it out. I have a blog, leadingwithdata.net. You can reach me, and also I'll post right now here in the chat a couple of the links that I mentioned today, and I'll leave also our contacts here in the end. So you guys have the link for the demo code that Susanna shared. It will stay here in the chat. You also have the link for those opportunities I mentioned. I mean, if you guys, any of you have interest in IT and banking, and you want to try it out to work in Europe, why not? give me a word anytime. And also the link for our contacts and LinkedIn. Feel free to network with us. So time to close it, right, Susanna? And if there is any question, we'll give 5 minutes to see if there is any question. Other than that, we'll give you guys back a few minutes to take a coffee and prepare for the next session.